Some places look normal, but those who stayed overnight never came back the same, or never came back at all. These are 10 real-life haunted places you should never, ever visit alone. 10. The Island of the Dolls, Mexico. Deep in the heart of Mexico's Xochimilco canals, far away from the noise of the city and the comfort of crowds, lies an island unlike any other. Locals don't like to talk about it. Guides don't recommend going after sunset. And even in broad daylight, something about the place feels wrong. They call it La Isla de las Muñecas, the Island of the Dolls. And if you ever find yourself drifting down the canals, you'll notice something strange long before you even arrive. Dolls, dozens, hundreds, hanging from trees, nailed to walls, slumped against branches. Their eyes are hollow, limbs missing, faces weathered, melted, darkened by time and decay. And yet they feel like they're watching you, always watching. But the story of the island doesn't begin with the dolls. It begins with death. Decades ago, a man named Don Julian Santana Barrera left his family and moved to the island alone. No one knows exactly why. Some say he was running from something. Others believe he was trying to find peace. But peace was the last thing he found. According to legend, shortly after he arrived, Don Julian discovered the body of a young girl who had drowned in the canal. Her lifeless form was tangled among the reeds. And not far from her, he found something else, a doll, just floating there, face down in the water. He pulled the doll from the canal and, perhaps as a gesture of respect, or guilt, or fear, he hung it from a tree. But something changed in him after that. He said he could hear the girl's spirit at night, whispering, crying, pleading. He believed she had never truly left, that her soul was trapped there, bound to the water, to the island, to him. And so he began collecting dolls, not as toys, not as decorations, but as offerings. One after another, he'd find them in the trash, trade vegetables for them, even rescue broken ones from the street. He didn't care if they were whole. In fact, most weren't. Arms torn off, eyes gouged out, heads barely clinging to their necks. He'd hang them anyway, in the trees, on fences, inside his shack, everywhere. As the years passed, the island changed. What had once been a lonely retreat became a haunting shrine. The dolls multiplied, clinging to branches like strange fruit. When the wind blew, they swayed and creaked, their hollow eyes rolling in their sockets. Some say they whisper to each other. Others say they cry at night. Don Julian believed their presence kept the spirit of the girl calm, that the more dolls he brought, the quieter her voice became. But the truth was, the whispers never stopped. Not really. People began to talk. Some were curious, others terrified. A few ventured to the island out of fascination. Most never came back, and those who didn't speak of what they saw. Visitors reported hearing footsteps in the brush when no one else was there. Dolls seemed to change positions when no one was looking. One man claimed he watched a doll blink. Another said he heard one giggle softly just inches from his ear. Whether the stories are true or not, no one knows. But they all agree on one thing. There is a weight on that island, a heaviness in the air, like grief soaked into the soil, like something is watching you, waiting. Then, in Launsenlingyi, Don Julian was found dead. He had drowned, in the same canal where the girl had died. in the exact same spot. His body floated among the reeds, like hers. Some say it was just a coincidence, a tragic accident. But those who knew him, who believed his stories, they think something else happened. That the girl finally took him. Or maybe the dolls did. Since his death, the island has remained nearly untouched. His family left everything the way he did. The dolls are still there, rotting, watching, growing in number. Tourists come, some out of thrill, others for the morbid photos. But many regret it. Some report feeling sick as soon as they step on the island. Others claim their cameras stop working, batteries die, phones glitch, and almost everyone says the same thing: they never feel alone, even when there's no one else around. Psychologists call it pareidolia, the brain's tendency to see faces and patterns. But on the island of the dolls, the faces are real. They're just not alive. At least, not in the way we understand it. One woman said she heard a girl's voice whisper her name, soft and close, but there was no one behind her. A couple once visited the island just before dusk. They wandered too far, got lost among the trees. When they finally found their way back to the boat, the man had scratch marks on his back, deep ones. He said he never felt a thing. He never even turned around. The locals don't go there anymore. Not unless they have to. Some still leave dolls at the edge of the water, never stepping foot on the island itself, just tossing them toward the trees. A strange offering to a place that feels cursed, haunted, alive. And maybe that's the most terrifying part. It's not just the dolls, not just the death. It's the silence, the stillness, the feeling that time doesn't work the same way there. That once you step onto the island, something begins to change. In the air, in your head, in you. Don Julian believed he was protecting the world from the spirit of a dead girl. But what if he was wrong? What if the dolls didn't keep her at bay, but brought her closer? What if he wasn't alone all those years? What if he never left? The island of the dolls sits quietly in the Aokigahara canals. The water laps against the shore. The trees sway gently, and the dolls are still watching, waiting. Some with smiles, some without faces, all with stories they will never tell. And when the wind moves just right, some say, you can hear them, not with your ears, but deep in your bones, whispers, laughter, and sometimes a girl crying, calling for help, just like the day she died. So if you ever find yourself in Mexico, tempted by curiosity, and think about visiting the island of the dolls, go in the daytime. Don't wander too far. And whatever you do, don't go alone. 9. Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Kentucky, USA. In the quiet hills of Louisville, Kentucky, there stands a building that once promised healing, but delivered only silence. Cold, heavy silence. Waverly Hills Sanatorium. At first glance, it's just a crumbling structure, concrete, steel, and time. But once you step inside, the air changes. It grows colder, still. And if you listen carefully, really carefully, you might just hear it. The faint echo of a gurney rolling across the floor. A scream far away. A whisper with no source. This was no ordinary hospital. It was built in the early 1900s during one of the deadliest epidemics in American history, tuberculosis, also called the White Plague. There was no cure, no treatment, only hope, and walls thick enough to keep the sickness in, or maybe to keep something else from getting out. At its peak, Waverly Hills held over 400 patients, most of them children, young mothers, entire families wasting away in beds, coughing blood, suffocating slowly as the disease filled their lungs. Doctors tried everything, some of it noble, some of it horrific. Patients were given sunlight therapy, fresh air, even in winter. Their beds were wheeled onto open balconies, no matter the cold. But that was only the beginning. Some underwent experimental surgeries. Entire lungs removed, ribs cracked open. Chests collapsed in a desperate effort to stop the infection. Few survived. Most did not. The official number of deaths is debated, but some say over 60,000 people died inside these walls. 60,000. And when they died, they didn't go out the front door. There was a tunnel hidden beneath the building. It was built to carry supplies up and down the steep hill. But during the outbreak, it became something else. Something darker. They called it the body chute, or the death tunnel, because that's where they sent the corpses, dozens a day, wheeled down in silence, one after another, covered in white sheets, out of sight, out of mind. The hospital didn't want other patients seeing the dead. It would crush morale, so they pretended, as if death wasn't happening, as if hope still had a chance. But inside the death tunnel, hope was already gone. Visitors who walk through it today say they feel breathless, dizzy. Some faint before they reach the bottom. Others claim to hear footsteps behind them, even when they're alone. One woman said she heard her name whispered from the shadows, over and over. Another man walked through the tunnel with a flashlight. It flickered, then died. When he turned around, he saw footprints, wet ones trailing behind him. But the floor was dry, and the tunnel is just one part of Waverly's haunted legacy. The building itself has become a magnet for the strange, the tragic, and the unexplainable. Room 502 is one of the most infamous. In 1928, a nurse was found hanging from a light fixture inside. She was pregnant, unmarried, ashamed. The story goes that she took her own life to hide the scandal, but others believe something pushed her, because just 4 years later, another nurse jumped from the window of the very same room. She landed on the sidewalk below, her body broken. But what's odd is that no one saw her fall, and no one knows why she was even up there. Today, people who visit room 502 report overwhelming sadness, nausea. Some say they can't breathe. A few have seen the silhouette of a woman, standing silently in the doorway, watching, always watching. And she's not the only one. Shadow figures are seen throughout the building, tall, black forms that dart around corners, appear in doorways, vanish when approached. They leave no sound, no scent, no heat, just a deep, paralyzing fear that hits you like a wave, as if something ancient is watching you from just beyond the veil. Then there's the little boy. No one knows his name. He's seen playing with a ball in the hallway. Visitors say they hear it bouncing, tap, 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 then rolling, then silence. When they turn to look, he's there just for a moment. A child, pale and thin, staring with hollow eyes. And then he's gone. Skeptics say it's the wind, the power of suggestion, a trick of the mind. But even seasoned investigators, people who don't scare easily, have left Waverly Hills shaken. Equipment malfunctions. Cameras stop recording. Batteries drain in seconds. One team brought motion sensors and night vision rigs. In the middle of the night, every single sensor triggered at once on every floor. But there was no one there. No one living, at least. The building was officially shut down in 1961. After the tuberculosis epidemic ended, for a while it reopened as a nursing home. But stories of abuse and neglect surfaced. Residents claimed they were being watched, touched. Some refused to sleep with the lights off. The facility closed again in the 1980s, and since then, it's just sat there, empty, waiting. Waverly Hills is not a house of horrors created for entertainment. It is real, every brick, every room, every sound echoing through the halls carries a history soaked in death and desperation, and maybe something else, something that never left. People often say buildings can't hold memories, but walk through Waverly's halls, and you might start to believe otherwise. You might feel something brush past you in the dark, or hear the gurney roll behind you, or catch a voice whispering your name when you are sure you are alone. But you're not. Waverly Hills stands today as one of the most haunted places in America. Paranormal investigators from around the world come hoping to record voices, capture shadows, or simply feel the chill of something unexplained. Some succeed, others never speak about it again. So, if you ever find yourself in Kentucky and someone offers you a tour of Waverly Hills, say yes. But be prepared. Bring a flashlight. Don't wander off. And whatever you do, don't follow the sound of the ball bouncing. Because once you step inside Waverly Hills, you might just find that something is waiting for you too. 8. The Demon House, Gary, Indiana. In a quiet neighborhood in Gary, Indiana, surrounded by ordinary homes and unremarkable lives, there once stood a house that was anything but ordinary. From the outside, it looked like any other modest home, peeling paint, broken steps, weeds growing wild, but once you stepped inside, the air changed. It grew heavier, thicker, like something was watching you before you even crossed the threshold. This was no haunted house story for thrill seekers. This was real. This was a case that terrified police officers, baffled doctors, and sent social workers running out the door in tears. It's known today as the Demon House, and what happened inside would haunt every person who dared to enter. The story began in 2011, when LaToya Ammons and her 3 children moved into the house on Carolina Street. Almost immediately, things felt wrong. At night, footsteps echoed through the halls when no one was awake. Shadows moved across the walls. Doors slammed. But these weren't just the tricks of a creaking old home. It escalated. LaToya's daughter claimed she was being choked by invisible hands. One son started speaking in a voice that wasn't his own. Another son, just 7 years old, was found growling, his eyes rolling back into his head, his body convulsing in unnatural ways. And then there was the levitation. One night, the daughter floated above her bed, eyes wide open, completely silent. Family members screamed. They prayed. They tried to pull her down, but it was like something else had taken hold of her. They reached out for help from priests, from doctors, from the police, but no one believed them. Not at first, until people started seeing it for themselves. A Child Protective Services caseworker came to investigate. She brought a nurse and a report form. What she got was a nightmare. Inside the home, the lights flickered. The air felt charged. The youngest boy stared into her eyes and began speaking in a guttural voice, deep and ancient, far too old for a child. Then, right in front of them, he walked backward up a wall. No run-up, no assistance, just walked backwards up the wall, and then flipped and landed on his feet. The nurse screamed. The caseworker ran. She refused to ever go back inside. She later told reporters she believed what she saw was real, that the family was not lying, that something evil lived in that house. Soon, the Gary Police Department got involved. Officers arrived to investigate and found nothing they could explain, no sign of forced entry, no evidence of a hoax, but they too felt it, the chill in the air, the oppressive presence that made their hands tremble. One officer brought his recording equipment. He captured strange audio clips, distorted voices, moans, screams. One photo showed a shadowy figure in the window when the house was empty. Another officer's radio malfunctioned the moment he stepped inside. He left and never returned. A priest was brought in. Father Michael Maggi. He wasn't a sensationalist. He wasn't even sure he believed it at first. But when he spoke with the family, when he saw the look in their eyes, when he walked into the house himself, he changed his mind completely. He performed multiple exorcisms on the house, on the children, on Latoya herself. Each time, he said, he could feel it, something ancient, something hateful. It didn't want to leave, and it didn't. Latoya's children were taken from her temporarily, not as punishment, but for their safety. During their time in care, the strange behavior stopped, but as soon as they visited the house again, it returned, screaming, nightmares, bruises appearing from nowhere, the kind of things no one wanted to believe, but too many had witnessed to deny. One child drew pictures of the house on fire. Another said a dark figure watched him while he slept. The case became so public, so disturbing, that it drew national attention. Even Hollywood. Years later, paranormal investigator and filmmaker Zach Bagans bought the house. He had heard the stories. He wanted to see it for himself. He lived there for days, recorded everything, but what he experienced shook him. Doors slamming, shadows moving. He said he felt sick, spiritually sick. People on his crew began to fall ill. One man, a skeptical psychiatrist, developed organ failure shortly after visiting. Another had a nervous breakdown. Eventually, Zach demolished the house, tore it down completely. He said it was the only way to stop whatever lived there. To this day, the lot remains empty. But some say that wasn't enough. Locals report strange activity near the site. Pets refuse to walk past it. Neighbors say lights flicker in nearby houses when the wind picks up. One woman claimed she saw a figure standing in the lot late one night, just standing, watching. Others say they feel an invisible weight on their chest when they drive by. And those who entered the house before it was torn down, whether police, reporters, or investigators, they all say the same thing. It followed them into their homes, their dreams, their lives, because that's the thing about places touched by true darkness. You don't walk away clean. You don't just forget. The demon house in Gary, Indiana may no longer stand, but those who crossed its threshold carry something with them, a fear, a memory, a scar you can't see but never stops burning. Latoya and her children eventually moved far away. They changed their names, tried to rebuild their lives, But even now, years later, she says she still prays every night, still wonders if it's truly over, still checks her children's eyes for signs of something else looking back. The church refused to release the full details of the exorcism. The state sealed some of the case files. But the witnesses remain. The photos exist. The fear never left. And maybe the evil didn't either. So, if you're ever in Gary, Indiana, and someone points to a patch of grass, a place where nothing grows right, and says, "That's where the demon house used to be," don't laugh. Don't scoff. Just keep walking, and don't look back. Because some houses remember you, even after they're gone. 7. Cecil Hotel, Los Angeles, California. In the heart of downtown Los Angeles, surrounded by the buzz of traffic, neon lights, and the noise of everyday life, stands a building whose walls have absorbed decades of darkness. The Cecil Hotel, once a symbol of affordable glamour in the 1920s, now remembered only for death, mystery, and the unspeakable. From the very beginning, something seemed wrong with this place, almost as if it was cursed from the moment its doors opened. It was supposed to be a hotel for travelers, dreamers, business people, but it became a final stop for the lost, the desperate, and the damned. Over the decades, the Cecil has been home to suicides, overdoses, and unsolved murders. It was nicknamed the Suicide Hotel. In the 1960s, after so many people jumped to their deaths from its windows, some leapt from their rooms, some from the roof. Some left notes, others left nothing, just silence, and then there were the killers. In the 1980s, one guest stood out from the rest, not for his complaints or his room service demands, but for the trail of blood he left behind. Richard Ramirez, better known as the Night Stalker, stayed at the Cecil while he terrorized Los Angeles with a series of horrific murders. He would return to the hotel after his killings, blood-stained clothes still clinging to him, walking barefoot through the lobby, unseen or ignored by staff. He wasn't the only one. Another serial killer, Jack Unt, also called the Cecil home while mimicking Ramirez's crimes, strangling sex workers with their own brass. It's almost as if the hotel didn't just attract darkness, it fed on it. But perhaps the most haunting story of all came in 2013, when a young woman from Canada checked into the Cecil and was never seen alive again. Her name was Eliza Lamb. She was 21, a student traveling alone. By all accounts, she was bright, artistic, curious. She posted about her trip on social media, took photos of bookstores and museums, and wrote about her struggles with mental health. But nothing could prepare anyone for what would happen next. On the last night she was seen, the hotel's security camera captured something unsettling. Elisa was inside the elevator, alone, but her behavior was strange. She pressed every button. She peeked into the hallway. She moved her hands in erratic, unnatural motions, as if communicating with something invisible. Then she stepped in and out of the elevator several times. At one point, she flattened herself against the wall, hiding. And then, she was gone. The door stayed open far longer than it should have. The video went viral. People all over the world watched it, over and over again, trying to understand what they were seeing. Some thought she was playing a game. Others believed she was on drugs. But toxicology reports would later say otherwise. And what made the case even more disturbing was where they eventually found her. Weeks passed. Guests at the hotel began complaining that the water pressure was low, that the water looked dark, that it tasted strange. A maintenance worker went to the roof to check the water tanks. What he found was horrifying. Elisa Lam's body, naked and bloated, floating face up inside one of the sealed tanks. The only access to the tank was through a heavy metal hatch too high for her to reach, without assistance, and too heavy to close from the inside. The rooftop itself was alarmed and locked. Only staff had access. And yet, there she was. No signs of struggle, no explanation. The official ruling was accidental drowning. But few believe that. Many questions remain. How did she get onto the roof? Why wasn't the alarm triggered? How did she open the tank? And how did she close it again alone? Some say she had a psychotic episode. Others believe something far more sinister was involved. Paranormal researchers point to the hotel's long history of tragedy. They say it sits on a place of negative energy, that it attracts people on the edge of sanity, of society, of life. That the Cecil is not just haunted, it's cursed. Even after the hotel rebranded itself as Stay on Main, trying to escape its past, the energy inside refused to change. Visitors still report feeling watched. Doors open and close on their own. Footsteps echo through empty hallways. Elevators malfunction. Guests have woken in the night to see dark figures standing at the foot of their beds, vanishing when they scream. And always, the stories circle back to the same place, the elevator. The same one Elisa Lam stepped into, and never truly left. Some claim they've seen her reflection in the metal door. Others say, if you ride the elevator late at night, pressing the same buttons she did, it sometimes doesn't stop at the right floor. It takes you somewhere else, somewhere colder, somewhere you don't want to be. The Cecil Hotel may still stand, but its walls are cracked, its history stained, and its silence deafening. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened to Elisa Lam. No one knows what she saw in that hallway. No one knows why she was hiding, or what she was hiding from. And maybe that's what makes it so terrifying. Because sometimes the scariest stories aren't the ones we can explain. They're the ones that leave us with nothing but questions. The Cecil Hotel has tried to clean up its image, but the ghosts don't care about paint or marketing. They're still there, waiting, watching, and if you ever find yourself in downtown LA, walking past that tall, silent building, don't look up at the windows. And whatever you do, don't step into that elevator, because you never know who or what might be waiting there with you. 6. Aokigahara Forest, Japan. At the base of Mount Fuji in Japan lies a forest so dense, so silent, and so filled with sorrow that its very name sends a chill through those who hear it. Aokigahara, known to many as the Suicide Forest, is a place shrouded in mystery, tragedy, and something far darker than mere folklore. It is said that once you enter Aokigahara, the forest begins to consume you. The thick canopy overhead blocks out most of the sunlight, and the twisted trees grow so close together that even sound seems to be swallowed whole. There are no birds singing, no rustling of animals, just silence, unnatural silence, the kind of silence that feels alive. Compasses often fail here, thrown off by the rich deposits of magnetic iron in the volcanic soil. GPS trackers glitch, phones lose signal, and sometimes people do too. Each year, dozens enter this forest with no intention of ever leaving. Some bring tents. Others bring notes, final words for family they'll never see again. The government stopped releasing the exact number of suicides years ago, hoping to discourage copycats. But locals, rangers, and volunteers who patrol the area still find the signs. Ropes tied to trees to help people find their way back, though many never do. Abandoned backpacks, neatly folded clothes, scattered belongings, and sometimes bodies. The forest has become synonymous with death. But death isn't the only thing people report in Aokigahara. There are the voices. Whispers that drift through the trees when no one else is around. A cold breath against your neck in the dead stillness. Some claim to hear their names called out in the distance softly at first, then more insistently. The rule is simple. If you hear a voice calling you in the forest, you don't answer, because it's not someone you know. It's not someone looking for help. It's something else. In Japanese folklore, there's a name for these spirits, yurei. Restless souls who died in pain, sorrow, or anger. Unlike peaceful spirits that pass on, yurei linger. Trapped between worlds, bound by emotion, regret, or revenge. In Aokigahara, people believe these spirits are everywhere, that they feed off sadness, that they pull at the living, that they whisper doubts into your mind until your thoughts are no longer your own. Some visitors report feeling a sudden, overwhelming despair that wasn't there before. Others feel watched, followed, not by animals or people, but by the forest itself. In some areas, the trees are marked with ribbons or string left by visitors who wanted a way back. But there are parts of the forest where the string ends abruptly, as if cut, as if someone or something didn't want them to leave. And then there's the eerie truth of all. Many of the people who enter Aokigahara are perfectly functional before they arrive, not visibly suicidal. Some are tourists. Some are curious. Some are hikers. But the forest changes them. That's what makes it different. This isn't just a place where people go to die, it's a place where something seems to call them to die. Some believe the forest is cursed, a centuries-old burial ground tainted by spirits from a darker time. Others say it's the energy of Mount Fuji itself, mysterious, powerful, ancient. But for those who've been inside, the legends don't feel like stories. They feel like warnings. One man, a travel vlogger, entered Aokigahara with the intention of documenting its beauty and mystery. But as he walked deeper, the laughter faded. His tone changed. The camera shook. At one point, he turned around and whispered, "I think we're being followed." They weren't, not by a person. But when they played the footage back, a figure, pale, out of place, motionless, could be seen between the trees, watching, gone in the next frame. And then there's the case of the schoolteacher who wandered off the path during a nature hike. He was found days later, curled beneath the roots of an ancient tree, eyes open, no signs of trauma. The coroner ruled it heart failure, but his face was frozen in an expression of pure terror. The forest had taken him, not physically, but mentally, spiritually. He never came back. Not really. The Japanese government has tried to intervene. Signs are posted at the entrance, urging people to reconsider, to talk to someone, to remember their families. Hotlines are listed. Cameras monitor the trails. Volunteers patrol the area daily, calling out into the quiet in hopes that someone, anyone, might call back. But the forest remains, unchanged, unmoved, uncaring. is not evil in the way that horror movies show. There are no jump scares, no sudden monsters leaping from the shadows. What makes it terrifying is its stillness, its patience, its hunger for quiet despair. It doesn't rush you. It waits. It lingers. It whispers. And when you are alone, truly alone, with no phone signal, no one else in sight, and only your thoughts for company, that's when it speaks loudest. Some who've survived the forest say the line between reality and hallucination blurs quickly. That time feels distorted, that the trees begin to twist, lean, press in around you, that familiar paths suddenly disappear, as if the forest rearranges itself, as if it doesn't want you to leave. In one well-known case, a man wandered for 2 days, his GPS tracker showing circles. He was dehydrated and terrified, but he swears he saw his own double standing in the trees, just watching, motionless, a copy of himself. And then it smiled. He ran until he found the edge of the forest, collapsing near a patrol area. He never went back, never spoke about it again. Today, Aokigahara is still open to visitors. Some come for the beauty because yes, beneath its darkness, the forest is stunning. Moss-covered trees, volcanic rocks, endless green. But even in the sunlight, there's a weight in the air, a heaviness, a knowing. And the moment you step inside, it feels like something knows you're there, like it's watching, like it's waiting. If you ever visit Aokigahara, stay on the path. Don't wander. Don't follow the ribbons. Don't answer the voices. And whatever you do, don't stay after dark. Because in that forest, silence is not peace. Silence is warning. And some places were never meant to be walked alone. 5. Area 51, Nevada, USA. In the heart of the Nevada desert, surrounded by endless sand, jagged mountains, and government warnings, lies a place that officially doesn't exist. No name on maps, no public access, just a stretch of scorched land and a fence that marks the edge of America's greatest mystery. It's called Area 51 for decades. It's been the epicenter of conspiracy theories, whispered secrets, and late-night radio calls from people who claim to have seen too much. What is it about this place that fuels such fascination? Maybe it's the signs posted every few feet warning you to turn back. Maybe it's the armed guards watching from unmarked trucks. Or maybe it's what people say they've seen in the skies. Above it, things that defy logic, science, and gravity itself. Area 51 was built in the 1950s, originally to test the U-2 spy plane, far from the eyes of Soviet satellites and prying civilians. But over time, the secrecy deepened. It became more than just a military base. It became a legend. Pilots began reporting unidentified flying objects, lights that moved at impossible speeds, shapes that hovered, twisted, and disappeared without a sound. The government dismissed it as weather balloons, optical illusions, test flights. But the witnesses trained military personnel. Scientists, engineers told a different story. Then came the claims that shook the world. In 1989, a man named Bob Lazar appeared on television. He said he had worked inside Area 51, on a site called S4. According to Lazar, the government wasn't just building planes. They were reverse engineering alien technology. He described spacecraft unlike anything known to man, powered by anti-gravity, controlled by the mind. He said there were 9 of them, hidden in hangars carved into the mountains. And even more chilling, he claimed, there were bodies, non-human, stored in cryogenic units. The story exploded. The government denied everything. Lazar was discredited, his credentials questioned, his life turned upside down, but the core of his story never changed. And many who dismissed him at first found themselves wondering, why would someone go through all this, risk everything for a lie? And if he was lying, why have some of the things he described turned out to be real years later? Even today, the airspace above Area 51 is the most restricted in the United States. Pilots are told to avoid it at all costs. Satellites are routinely blinded when passing overhead, and those who try to get close on foot, they're met by so-called camo dudes, men in plain uniforms, no badges, who appear out of nowhere to escort you away, sometimes with words, sometimes with weapons drawn. There are no second chances. The perimeter is patrolled constantly. Drones watch from above. Sensors track movement underground. And somewhere, deep below the desert floor, something is happening. Something no one's allowed to talk about. Visitors to the nearby town of Rachel, the closest civilian settlement, report strange things. Phones that stop working, GPS devices that spin in circles, lights in the sky that flash, dip, and vanish. Some locals say they've seen aircraft shift shape mid-air. Others claim to have heard low hums vibrating through the ground late at night. And some say they've seen beings, not human, watching from a distance, always at the edge of sight. But what's most disturbing isn't what's seen. It's what's felt. A presence. A weight in the air. As if the land itself is hiding something. Something ancient. Something not meant for us. Even skeptics admit there's something deeply wrong about Area 51. That kind of secrecy doesn't exist without reason. People have devoted their lives trying to uncover what lies behind those fences. Some have disappeared. Some have been silenced. Others claim to have gotten too close and say they were warned, clearly, forcefully, do not return. In 2013, for the first time, the US government officially acknowledged the existence of Area 51, sort of. Declassified documents admitted the base was real, used for testing high-altitude spy planes. But that's all they said. No mention of aliens. No mention of Lazar. No mention of what countless people claim to have seen. Just weather balloons and test flights. But that didn't quiet the theories. It only made them louder. Because the more the government tries to dismiss what happens at Area 51, the more people want to know. In 2019, a joke event called Storm Area 51 went viral. Over 2 million people RSVP'd memes were made. News covered it endlessly. And yet, when the day came, only a few hundred showed up. They were met with military presence. Gates were watched. Drones flew overhead. The message was clear. Don't come closer. Behind that wire, beneath that desert, is something the world isn't ready to see. Whether it's experimental technology, contact with extraterrestrials, or a massive psychological operation, no one outside the inner circle knows for sure. And maybe we're not supposed to. The desert keeps its secrets well. The dry wind erases tracks. The sun blinds the eye, and the silence. The silence is endless. But sometimes, late at night, if you stand just outside the gates, you might see something. A flicker of light. A shadow that moves against the stars. A whisper of motion in a place that should be still. And if you stay too long, You'll feel it, eyes watching you, machines humming beneath your feet, and a presence pressing in from the dark. Area 51 might be just another military base, or it might be something far more dangerous, far more powerful, and far more unearthly than we could ever imagine. Whatever the truth is, it's buried deep, protected, hidden, but not forgotten, because secrets have weight, and some secrets are too big to stay silent forever. One day, something may escape the fence, something that doesn't belong here. Until then, we watch the sky, and we wonder, and we wait. 4. The Villisca Axe Murder House, Iowa, USA. On a quiet street in the small town of Villisca, Iowa, sits a white wooden house with peeling paint and shuttered windows. It looks ordinary, quaint, even, but in 1912, this home became the site of one of the most brutal and perplexing crimes in American history. 8 people, including 6 children, were bludgeoned to death inside. The weapon, an axe. The killer never caught. And over a century later, the house remains frozen in time, untouched, unchanged, and deeply haunted. The night of June 9th, 1912, the Moore family returned home after a church event. Josiah and Sarah Moore, along with their 4 children, Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul, were joined by 2 overnight guests, Lena and Ina Stillinger, friends of Catherine. It was an ordinary evening in a peaceful town, but by morning, every soul inside the house was dead. Their faces were covered with cloth. The mirrors were draped. The killer had stayed in the house after the murders, eating food from the kitchen and lingering as if unbothered by the horror he'd unleashed. Josiah was struck with such force that his eyes were reportedly missing. The ceiling above the bed showed gouge marks from the upward swing of the axe. And the worst part, no one heard a thing. No neighbors, no passers-by, nothing. The doors were locked from the inside. There were no signs of forced entry. Whoever did it had walked in and out, unnoticed. The town was paralyzed with fear. Investigators interviewed neighbors, even local pastors, but no one was ever charged. One suspect, Reverend George Kelly, confessed to the murders but later recanted. He was tried twice. The first trial ended in a hung jury. The second, not guilty. And so the case went cold. The house stood empty for years, eventually restored as a historical site. But something still lingers there. Visitors today report intense feelings of unease the moment they cross the threshold. Cold spots in summer, doors that creak open on their own, lights flickering without power, and the sounds, those are the hardest to explain. At night, people hear footsteps pacing the hallway. Children's laughter turns into sobs. Shadows dart across rooms where no one stands. And in the dead silence, some swear they hear the unmistakable scrape of metal like an axe being dragged across the floor. Paranormal investigators from across the world have come here. Some bring equipment, others bring prayers. All leave with stories. In 2014, a ghost hunter staying overnight stabbed himself in the chest, later saying the house told him to do it. He survived, barely. Others reports being scratched, pushed, or overcome with nausea and dread. One man fled the house after hearing a voice whisper directly in his ear, even though he was completely alone. Skeptics have tried to explain it away: old pipes, creaky floors, the power of suggestion. But even the most rational visitors admit Something about the Villisca axe murder house feels wrong, deeply wrong. Some believe the spirits of the children remain trapped there, confused and afraid. Others think the killer left behind a piece of his darkness, a residual evil that poisons the air. And then there are those who say the killer comes back, night after night, repeating what he did. A loop of horror playing over and over again. Locals refuse to walk by after dark. Tourists rarely stay the full night. Even the bravest ghost hunters often retreat before sunrise. There's something about the house that doesn't just scare you, it watches you. It waits. The layout is simple. 2 bedrooms upstairs. A small parlor, a kitchen, a guest room on the first floor. But every corner feels heavy, still, as if the walls remember, as if the screams are still echoing, trapped in the wood. And maybe they are. The house has become a place of pilgrimage for those drawn to the unknown. Some come for answers. Some come for fear, but few leave unchanged. Because when you spend a night in Villisca, time doesn't move the way it should. Hours stretch, shadows deepen, and silence speaks louder than words. In the upstairs bedroom where the more children died, the temperature drops suddenly. Cameras fail. Batteries drain. People hear someone whispering their names. Downstairs, near the guest room, a strange pressure builds in your chest, like someone is sitting on you, watching, waiting. And then, the sound, a slow scrape, metal on wood. The axe, perhaps, always the axe. No matter where you go in the house, it finds you. The sound follows, faint but unmistakable. It's said the killer returned to the scene of the crime. The night after the murders, standing outside, watching the town react, feeding off the fear. Some think he never truly left, that his spirit was bound to the house the moment he raised the axe. Others believe it wasn't just a man who committed the murders, but something darker, something that used the man, possessed him, and still hungers. The town of Villisca has moved on in some ways. Children play in nearby parks. Stores sell souvenirs and coffee, but the house remains untouched, preserved, protected, or maybe contained, because what's inside doesn't belong out here. The house draws people in, year after year, and every time someone crosses that threshold, it stirs, just a little, just enough, to remind us that the past isn't dead. It's waiting, hidden behind old curtains, beneath creaking floorboards, and in the dark corners of a house that once held laughter, and now holds something else entirely. The Villisca axe murder house isn't just haunted, it's haunted with purpose, with memory, with the echo of a crime so violent it shook a town to its core. And though the killer was never found, the truth lingers here, whispers through the walls, breathes down your neck, and waits for nightfall. 3. The ancient ram in England. In the sleepy village of Watton-under-Edge in Gloucestershire, England, there stands a crooked, timber-framed structure with sagging beams and a roof that seems to lean toward the earth, as if the building itself is too weary to stand. This is the ancient Ram Inn. It's over 1,000 years old, one of the oldest buildings in all of Britain. But what truly sets it apart isn't its age, it's what lurks inside. Built in 1145 on the site of a pagan burial ground, the inn was meant to house masons and labourers, building the nearby St. Mary's Church. But from the moment the first stones were laid, something was wrong. The energy here isn't just old, it's angry, very angry. Over the centuries, the inn has been the site of alleged satanic rituals, black magic, child sacrifice, and demonic possessions. Even seasoned paranormal investigators refuse to spend more than a few hours inside. It's not just haunted, it's something worse, much worse. The former owner, John Humphreys, purchased the inn in the 1960s, not knowing what he was walking into. On his very first night, he was dragged from his bed by an invisible force. That was just the beginning. He spent the next 50 years battling spirits that refused to let him live in peace. He found skeletal remains of children beneath the floorboards, along with daggers believed to have been used in ritual killings. And that's just what's been discovered. The rest, it's only spoken about in whispers. Guests have reported being pushed, scratched, and even choked by unseen hands. Some wake up pinned to the bed, unable to move or scream, their breath stolen by whatever crawled out of the shadows that night. One woman claimed she felt something climb into bed with her, something that whispered in a language she couldn't understand, but somehow knew was ancient and evil. Others report icy cold drafts, foul smells, and the sound of children crying, even when no one else is in the house. The most active room is called the Bishop's Room, once used by traveling clergymen. Today, it's said to be one of the most haunted rooms in the world. People who spend a night there often leave long before sunrise. Some never make it past the first hour. A heavy, crushing presence fills the air, like someone or something is watching you from the dark. Shadows dart across the room, and voices whisper just behind your ear. The bed shakes. The door creaks open on its own. And always, the cold, a bitter, ancient cold that seeps into your bones, no matter the season. Then there's the attic. Small, claustrophobic, filled with the smell of rot and mildew. It's said to be the domain of a succubus, a female demon that preys on men as they sleep, draining their life, their will, their sanity. Visitors have fled, screaming, refusing to even speak of what they saw. One man was found curled up on the floor, eyes wide, whispering, "It's in the walls." He never came back. Paranormal experts have captured EVP's electronic voice, phenomena that include screaming, growling, and commands to get out. Some investigators bring holy water, others bring crosses, most bring backup, but nothing truly prepares you for what you'll find inside the ancient Ram Inn, because this isn't just a haunted house, it's a portal, a doorway, a place where the veil between the living and the dead and the demonic is dangerously thin. Psychic mediums have claimed to see over 20 spirits. Here, a witch burned at the stake, a murdered child, a dark figure that hides in the rafters and watches you while you sleep. One priest entered the building and immediately vomited, saying he felt an overwhelming sense of evil, like walking into the very mouth of hell. And even John Humphreys, the former owner, said he had to sleep in a special chair with a Bible in his hand and a crucifix around his neck, just to keep the darkness at bay. He stayed because he believed it was his duty to protect the outside world from whatever lived within those walls. He died in the house. Some say the spirits finally claimed him. Others believe he became one of them. The house is now open to the public for those brave enough to enter. Paranormal tours are held, but the waiver you sign makes one thing very clear: they can't protect you from what you might encounter. Some visitors report hearing scratching from beneath the floorboards. Others see faces in the mirrors. One group claimed they saw a black mass crawl along the ceiling and disappear through a wall. Photos taken inside often show strange orbs, mists, or even full apparitions when just moments earlier the room was empty. Some believe the land itself is cursed, that centuries of death, violence, and ritual have left an imprint too deep to erase. That the ancient Ram Inn doesn't just house spirits, it creates them, feeds on them, feeds on you. The atmosphere is oppressive, suffocating, and strangely seductive. Many people return, drawn to the fear, the mystery, the adrenaline. But others leave and never speak of it again. One man claimed the inn followed him home. His lights began flickering. Objects moved on their own, and every night, at precisely 3:15 a.m., he would hear knocking on his bedroom wall. Always 3 knocks. No more, no less. Another woman developed a nervous disorder days after visiting. Doctors couldn't explain it. She only whispered one word when asked what happened. Eyes. The ancient Ram Inn is not a place for the faint of heart. It doesn't simply scare you, it marks you. It stays with you. A lingering chill that doesn't leave your skin. A shadow in the corner of your room that wasn't there before. A dream you keep having where you're trapped in a wooden house, and something is coming up the stairs. Something old. Something hungry. They say the past never truly dies. And at the ancient Ram Inn, that's terrifyingly true. Because in this house, the past wakes up at night, walks the halls, and waits for the next soul foolish enough to cross the threshold. It's not just haunted, it's alive, and if you listen closely, you might just hear it breathing. 2. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, Illinois, USA. Hidden deep within the Rubio Woods Forest Preserve in Midlothian, Illinois, lies a crumbling cemetery that looks like it was forgotten by time, but it's not forgotten. Not by the people who've seen the ghosts, not by the paranormal investigators who return year after year, and certainly not by the spirits who are said to linger there. This is Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, one of the most haunted places in America. At first glance, it doesn't look like much, just a fenced-off patch of land, overgrown and littered with broken gravestones. But as you step closer, you feel it. The change in temperature, the weight in the air, the sensation that something is watching. Established in the 1800s, Bachelor's Grove was a burial ground for early settlers. But in the 1960s, it was abandoned. And with abandonment came neglect, vandalism, and something darker, something that woke up in the quiet. Locals say the cemetery is a magnet for the paranormal. Strange lights flicker through the trees. Disembodied voices whisper your name. And sometimes, the entire area goes silent. No birds, no wind, just stillness. That's when you know you're not alone. One of the most chilling stories is that of the Phantom Farmhouse. Visitors claim to see an old 2-story white house nestled between the trees. It looks completely real, shutters flapping, porch creaking in the breeze. But when you approach it, it vanishes, right before your eyes. Those who've seen it describe an overwhelming sense of dread, like the house is trying to lure them in. And some believe it's not a house at all, but a trap. A spiritual mirage meant to pull you deeper into the woods, and into something you may never escape. Then there's the ghost car. Multiple witnesses have described being followed by a black 1940s style vehicle with no license plates. It appears suddenly, with glowing headlights, then disappears into thin air. Sometimes it just watches. Other times, it charges straight toward you only to vanish inches before impact. Paranormal researchers say the car may be connected to gang activity. From the Prohibition era, when bodies were rumored to have been dumped in the nearby lagoon. That same lagoon is said to be cursed. Some say it glows at night. Others claim to see faces beneath the surface, watching from the dark. One fisherman reported hearing whispers every time he cast his line, soft at first, then louder, angry, insistent. He left without his gear, too shaken to speak. But the most well-known spirit of Bachelor's Grove is the White Lady, also known as the Madonna of Bachelor's Grove. She's seen most often on quiet nights, usually near the full moon. Dressed in a flowing white gown, she sits on a moss-covered gravestone, cradling something in her arms. Some say it's a baby. Others say it's empty, just a bundle of cloth. She never speaks, never moves, just waits, staring off into the trees. Many believe she's the spirit of a woman buried beside her infant child, but there are no clear records, no proof. Just sightings, dozens of them, and they all describe the same thing. The sadness in her eyes, a deep, crushing grief that clings to you long after she's gone. Skeptics have tried to debunk the stories, calling them illusions, exaggerations, urban legends, but the evidence is hard to ignore. Photographs taken in the cemetery have captured orbs, mists, and even full-bodied apparitions. One photo, taken in the 1990s, became famous, a perfectly clear image of a woman sitting on a tombstone, wearing outdated clothes. No one saw her at the time, but the camera did, and no one has ever been able to explain it. Paranormal teams from across the country have investigated the site. They've recorded EVP's electronic voice phenomena containing growls, cries, and voices saying things like "help me," "leave," and "it's mine." Some investigators report sudden headaches, nausea, even scratches on their skin. Others have lost time moments where they blacked out, then came to in a different part of the cemetery, unsure how they got there. There's also the energy, the kind that makes electronics fail. Cameras stop working, batteries drain in seconds. People say their phones glitch, their flashlights flicker, and their recordings are filled with static. Until they step outside the cemetery grounds, then everything returns to normal. But the feeling doesn't. That sense that something followed you, that somewhere behind you, just beyond your line of sight, something is still watching. Many believe that years of vandalism and disrespect awoke something ancient in the cemetery, that by disturbing the dead, we gave them reason to linger. And now, they don't want to leave. Some say a portal was opened, that rituals conducted in the 1970s and 80s, animal sacrifices, occult ceremonies, tore a hole between our world and something darker. Whether that's true or not, one thing is certain. Bachelor's Grove is not just haunted by history, it's alive with it. The gravestones tell part of the story, dates, names, pieces of lives long gone. But the real story lives in the shadows, in the soft rustling behind the trees when there's no wind, in the cold breath on your neck when you're standing still, in the echo of footsteps that don't match your own. You can visit the cemetery during daylight hours. Some do, but most don't stay long. And almost no one goes after dark, because that's when the forest closes in. That's when the lights in the trees begin to move. That's when the woman in white appears, waiting, just waiting. And the deeper you go, the harder it is to find your way back. Not because of the paths, they're clear enough, but because something doesn't want you to leave. People report sudden feelings of confusion, dread, panic. Some say they hear music soft, old-fashioned tunes drifting through the trees. Others claim to see children playing among the graves, giggling until they vanish. One man left the cemetery and crashed his car less than a mile away. He swore he saw someone in the back seat just before he hit the tree, but there was no one there. Another visitor said he woke up that night with soil in his bed, just a handful of dark, damp earth. No explanation, no reason, just a reminder, a warning, or maybe an invitation to return. And that's the thing about Bachelor's Grove, it stays with you. In your thoughts, in your dreams, in the dark corners of your memory where you keep the things you don't want to believe in. But whether you believe or not doesn't matter. Because once you've stepped inside those rusted gates, once you've walked among the broken stones and heard the whispers of the forgotten, you're part of it. And the woman in white will be waiting. 1. The Paris Catacombs, France. Beneath the bustling streets of Paris, hidden far from the sunlight and the noise of the city above, stretches a vast, labyrinthine network known as the Paris Catacombs. This underground ossuary holds the bones of over 6 million people, packed and stacked in eerie, endless walls that twist and turn beneath the surface of the French capital. The catacombs began in the late 18th century as a solution to the city's overflowing cemeteries. When Paris was plagued by disease and decay from buried bodies, the bones were moved into abandoned limestone quarries below the city, creating what some call a macabre museum of mortality. But these passages are more than just resting places for the dead. They are a mysterious, sometimes deadly maze where people have entered, never to be seen again. The catacombs are vast, stretching over 200 miles, but only a small portion is open to the public. The rest is a secret underground world, uncharted and forbidden. Over the years, explorers, urban adventurers, and even thrill-seekers have ventured into the dark tunnels, seeking adventure or answers, but many have disappeared. The official entrances are well guarded, but there are countless hidden entry points known only to a few. Illegal excursions into the catacombs are common, and the underground is filled with dangers, unstable tunnels, sudden drops, pockets of toxic gas, and disorienting darkness that can trap even the most experienced caver. It's said the catacombs have their own ecosystem, complete with bats, rats, and other creatures adapted to the eternal night below. But the most chilling aspect is not the architecture or wildlife, it's what people have found deep inside. In 2004, police investigating unauthorized catacomb explorers stumbled upon a fully functioning underground cinema, complete with chairs, a projector, and a screen. It was a surreal discovery, a secret movie theater carved out of the stone, decorated with graffiti and candles. No one knows who built it or why. Some speculate it was a hideout for artists or underground rebels. Others whisper about cult gatherings or occult rituals. The catacombs have long been linked to legends and dark stories, ghost sightings, shadowy figures, unexplained noises, and the sensation of being watched. Some explorers speak of sudden chills, feelings of panic, and hearing whispers in languages they don't understand. Others have reported strange symbols carved into the walls, some dating back centuries, that hint at secret societies or forbidden knowledge hidden within the tunnels. Over the decades, The Paris catacombs have inspired countless tales of horror and mystery. Writers, filmmakers, and thrill-seekers are drawn to their dark allure. But for those who dare to enter, the catacombs are no mere tourist attraction. They are a place where the past lives in silence, where millions of souls lie in rest, but their stories remain untold. The darkness is absolute, and the walls seem to close in with every step deeper into the maze. Navigating the passages requires careful preparation, a reliable map, and nerves of steel, because one wrong turn can mean getting lost forever. There have been reports of explorers who disappeared only to be found days or weeks later, delirious and unable to explain how they survived. Some have never been found at all, their fate a mystery beneath the city of lights. Locals speak of the catacomb ghosts, phantoms that drift silently through the tunnels, sometimes seen as fleeting shadows or glowing eyes in the dark. Some claim the spirits of the dead are restless, disturbed by the living trespassers, while others believe darker forces guard the catacombs, ensuring no one uncovers their secrets. The catacombs also have a tragic history. During World War II, resistance fighters used the tunnels as hideouts and meeting places, adding layers of secret history to the already mysterious site. Over the years, there have been accidental deaths, people falling down shafts, succumbing to exhaustion or hypothermia, or worse, becoming victims of the catacombs' own unforgiving nature. And yet, despite the dangers, people keep coming, drawn by the mystery, the thrill, or the morbid fascination with death itself. The catacombs are a reminder of mortality, a city beneath a city, where silence reigns and the dead outnumber the living 1,000 to 1. For those who wander its depths, the Paris catacombs offer a glimpse into a world where history, death, and darkness intertwine, a place where the boundaries between life and death seem to blur, and where every step taken echoes with the whispers of millions who came before. It's a place that defies understanding and demands respect, because once you enter the Paris catacombs, you enter a world of shadows, secrets, and silence, a place where the line between the living and the dead fades into darkness, and where some who enter never return. So, would you spend a night in any of these places? Or maybe just drive by, with the doors locked? Either way, remember, some places are haunted for a reason.